No, thank you, I'm not religious.
Then what will you say to God when you stand before him on Judgment Day?
Hi. Gabriel said I could ask a couple questions, so I'll just get started. When I was down on Earth and I would tell your fans.
Okay, it turned off. Let's go back again. Trying to get
No,
this.
thank you, I'm not religious.
Then what will you say to God when you stand before him on Judgment Day?
Hi. Gabriel said I could ask a couple questions, so I'll just get started. When I was down on Earth and I would tell your fans what one of your fans used to do to me as a child, they always said that you were there the whole time. You like to watch? Or no, I'm just kidding. I don't know, like, why didn't you do anything, King? If you were there the whole time and you could stop it, why didn't you? Is my question. Like, you had all the smoke for Lot's wife, and all she did was turn around. Hitting it. Instant kibosh for her. But, like, I guess. My question is, why is that man still alive? You don't answer questions? Well, I don't know why I'm surprised, because you don't answer prayers either.
And what was the prayer that Jesus said in the Garden of Gethsemane? And he said, Father, if it's in your will, let this cup pass from me. So even Jesus didn't want to go through the crucifixion, what he was going to go through, right? But not my will, but your will be done. Where was God? Did God not answer Jesus' prayer? Did God abandon Jesus because he was crucified and he was tortured? Or was there an ultimate plan that if you didn't know the rest of the story, you would just say, look, God crucified, God let him die, right? What were the Jews saying? They're saying, oh, you have such a good relationship with God, call God down and have him save you, right? That didn't happen, right? The question here is, why is there evil? Why is there suffering? Why does God allow evil and suffering? And it's a hard question to answer, but it's hard for everybody. Even you as an atheist, what is your answer for the problem of evil? But do you even think there's things as objective evil? Is raping children actually wrong? Or is it a subjective opinion that you say it's wrong? So even when you're blaspheming and mocking, it still doesn't make sense, because do you really believe these things are evil? If we're all just made of stardust and we're all just here for a moment and evolution is true and all these things are true, there is no right and wrong. So that person that did do that to you, it is wrong, but you just can't justify why it's wrong other than saying, I just don't like chocolate ice cream. But I don't really think you believe that. I think you really believe that it is wrong to rape children. Wrong in the sense of, even if everybody on the earth agreed that it was okay, you would still say it's wrong. But you need an objective moral standard to do that. So you have to steal from God as you're trying to make fun of him. But no, it is a difficult question. Why does God allow this and not allow that? But you'd have to have an infinite mind. And also the thing that you guys hate to hear is free will, right? Why is that man still alive? If God unalived every single person that was about to commit evil, how many people would be on earth? Do you ever think about that? What about yourself? What about if God just said, oh, she's about to do this thing, she's about to steal, she's about to do this, I'm taking her out? Do you say that God is loving and he's given you free will to decide and choose what you wanted to do? Or like, you're always going to have to complain about it. But God bless you, and yeah, hope you see the light.
I would never worship a god. They would send someone to an eternal lake of fire to be burned forever for the simple fact of non-belief, when that deity knows what it would take to convince every single person on this planet that is cruel, it is inhumane, it is not kind, it is not generous, and that is not a God worthy of worship.
And then imagine that God sends his son, to pay the price of your sins, and all you have to do is believe in him, and you say, nah, I don't want to. But God, why aren't you accepting me into your kingdom? You don't have the membership card. You didn't want the free membership card that everybody could have picked up. You're evil, God, and you're going to send me to hell for all eternity, burning in a lake of fire and acid forever? Even though the Bible also says it's outer darkness, so maybe it's symbolism, who knows exactly what hell is like. All we know what it's like is separation from all the goodness of God, right? And he says, we're going to have to edit this, but then he says, and he knows exactly what it would take for you to believe. What do you mean by that, right? In the Bible, it says that the angels rebelled, that Satan was an angel, right? And he definitely knew God existed. He knew God was there. But what? Did he choose to serve and respect and honor and be in that kind of position relationship? Or did he say, you know what? I'd rather rule in hell than serve in heaven, right? Even though he knows God exists, he knows Christ exists, he still rejects them. So it doesn't matter about this upward ascension of now I believe, now I know that God is real. It doesn't mean you're necessarily going to go follow that God. You can still choose to not follow the God, even after you know he exists. That's exactly Satan's position. So no, I don't agree with your logic. It doesn't make sense. And there's holes in the narrative.
9 million children die every year before they reach the age of 5. Okay, picture an Asian tsunami of the sort.
The thing I love about him is, man, I'm going to try to find the clip, but there's a clip of him where he says, like, why abortion is okay, because abortion is just this many human.
And the ethical debate stops. The concern from the religious point of view is that we have to destroy 3-day-old human embryos to conduct this research. And the ethical debate stops there, that 3-day-old human embryos have souls. You have souls in the petri dish, you have souls in the little girl with diabetes. You can't, the interests of, who can weigh the interests of one soul against another? We never have to get into the details because faith stops the conversation. You just have to respect the faith proposition that life starts at the moment of conception, whatever that means. Well, let's talk about the details for a second. Perhaps it sounds scary to destroy human embryos. A 3-day-old human embryo is a collection of 150 cells. They're arranged in a sphere. There's no brain. There's no nervous system. Maybe 150 cells sounds like a lot of cells. There are 100,000 cells in the brain of a fly. And the possibility of having experience, the possibility of having interests, we know that more suffering is visited upon this earth every time we swat a fly than when we kill a 3-day-old human embryo.
Cells inside of it, and then look at a fly. A fly is like fully grown and it's alive and it has way more cells. And if we kill that, that's actually, more, important than this clump of human cells inside of the womb. So in one moment, human life really doesn't mean anything. And, babies in the womb, 9 months, 6 months, however many months, you're just a clump of cells. We can take you out any moment we want. Other second is, why is God allowing all these babies to die? We love babies so much and we care about children so much that we want abortion until 9 months and even further than that. But why did God allow all these kids to die? But let's just keep watching the video.
We saw in 2004 that killed 250,000 people. One of those every 10 days, killing children only under 5. Okay, it's 24,000 children a day, 1,000 an hour. That means before I can get to the end of this sentence.
And yes, I agree that this is a tragedy and this is bad. But how does an atheist justify why this is bad? Why this is wrong? Because every time you hear an atheist talk like this, always remember that it's just their opinion. It's just like me telling you the best ice cream in the world is strawberry. And then you're looking through the camera and being like, I think it's chocolate. And then Ralph is like, I think it's vanilla. There is no right flavor of ice cream, right? Everything is just, what do you like? And in this moment, he doesn't like tsunamis, etc., etc. But when you have Christianity and when you have an objective standard, an objective moral lawgiver like God saying these things are wrong, then it's not just up to people's opinions about what is right and what is wrong, right? There's actually an objective standard of what is right and what is wrong. Then you can actually start to say, this is wrong, this is right. Because right now he's just blowing hot air out of his mouth, telling us his feelings and his emotions. But that doesn't mean it's right. He can't justify morality.
Some few children, very likely, will have died in terror and agony. Any God who would allow children by the millions
Almost like when they're doing abortions and they're twisting one leg off and one arm off and squeezing the head until the white fluid comes out to know that the child's actually dead. Or not child, sorry. Clump of human cells developing neurons and brains and everything. It's not really a human. We can do that. You see the hypocrisy that I'm talking about? Be consistent, atheists. Be consistent. Okay? Either there is a God and these things are wrong, or they're not.
To suffer and die in this way either can do nothing to help them or doesn't care to.
Either can do nothing to help him or doesn't care to. So when Jesus was dying, bleeding on the cross, God was like, I'm indifferent. And, or like, I can't do anything about it, right? What did Jesus say? Jesus said to Pontius Pilate, if this was my kingdom, I would have like 10,000 angels, right? My servants that would fight to not have me captured by you guys. But this isn't my world, and there's a greater mission, a greater plan that you don't know about, that the Jews don't know about. You think if the Jews and Satan and all these guys knew that crucifying Christ was going to be the thing that was going to be the nail in the head of the serpent, you think they would have done it? No. So at the end of the day, we know that God is faithful, and even though we don't understand and see every reason, like Job, why everything is happening, there's an ultimate fulfillment at the end, right? And we trust the character of God. Okay? That's what having faith is at the end of the day. You just have faith in your science, quote unquote, even though science doesn't say anything, scientists do. You have faith in your materialistic, atheistic worldview on the world, that there's going to be nothing at the end, even though you've never died, even though you don't know that that's what there is, but you have faith in it, in things that you cannot see, like the Big Bang. You didn't see the Big Bang. You haven't seen evolution happen in front of your face where a monkey turns into a human or a dog turns into a cat, etc., etc. But you say, oh, look at the fossils billions of years ago, and we can examine this piece of evidence. And oh no, I need to see it to believe it, Mr. Atheist. Show me with my eyes so I can see it. That's your standard. Hypocrisy.
I found the most overpowered way to stunlock any religious person. Before you ask this simple question, you have to establish some things because they will try to run and you can't let them. First, you ask them, do you speak for God in any way? And they will answer, no, because they don't. Then you ask them, can God change his mind? For example, could God say intercourse before marriage is now okay? And they will say yes, because God does what he wants. Now you just do the flight emote like this and then ask them the question. If God asked you to unalive your family, would you do it? You are going to see the most insane responses you have.
If God asked me to unalive my whole family, would I do it? The quick answer is like no, because I would just be like, man, that's Satan. That's an angel of light, appearing to me as an angel of light, telling me to do these things. But even if I took your example and somehow it was the true God that said, okay, time to unalive your family, and then I went like Itachi Uchiha going through the house and like, yeah, God just told me, you got to take out your whole family. And then I'm going out, taking out my whole family, and I'm about to swing the sword on my dad's head. And then God's like, stop. Because we already have an example of this in the Bible, right? Abraham and Isaac, right? Everyone around in the surrounding nations were doing child sacrifice. They were unaliving their children for their deities, for Baal and Baal and all these different gods, false gods. In Christianity, we know they're demons masquerading as gods to the nation to have them sacrifice their children to them. But God in the Bible is very against this. But almost as a test to say, do you love me as much as these other pagans love their God? Would you do the ultimate thing and sacrifice your kid? And Abraham thinking in himself, hey, this is the promised kid that you promised me that like my lineage would go through. So how can I unalive him and that promise still be true? Abraham thinking in himself said, well, you know what? If God's powerful enough to give me a son in my old age, he's powerful enough to raise my son from the dead. So even if I do unalive him, I believe God has the power to resurrect him. And just as Abraham's about to stop, I'm not like those gods. It's good that you love me to the degree that these pagans love their God, and you're willing to sacrifice everything for me, but I don't require your children, okay? And every time the Israelites would sacrifice their children, what would happen to them? God would send them into slavery, into Babylon, into Assyria, to go be punished hard for doing that to their children, right? There's Bible verses on Bible verses about do not go out and sacrifice your kids, and you see the that happens for doing that. So no, it's not a crazy scenario. I actually like it because we already have an example in the Bible and what God asked and what God did and what God didn't allow to happen, right? So no. You did not cook us, sir. You cooked yourself. Because also I would say, why is it wrong to do any of these things if you're an atheist, right? Can you justify morality for me? And then the crickets sound, right? But
People will dodge the question. Some
no,
of them
didn't
will
dodge
block
it.
you. Some
Didn't
of them
block
will
you.
literally make up rules so
I didn't make
to
up no
not
rules.
answer the question.
I answered
Just
the
look
question.
at the comments in this video. Just
Look at the comments in this video, buddy.
Yo, a lot of the times when you bring up that there's a lot of evil shit that's going on in this world that God could apparently stop with all the powers of all the things all of the time, people are quick,
Yes, free will.
lightning fast. Free will.
Free will.
No, free will. He cares more about free will.
Free will, bro.
I mean, that doesn't explain cancer or Alzheimer's, but they're quick like, free will.
Hey.
And then when you read this goddamn book,
What do you mean it doesn't talk about cancer and Alzheimer's? It says then corruption came into the world, right? After the fall. In the garden, things were good, man. You didn't read your Bible? Things were perfect at the beginning, but after sin came in, right, with Adam and Eve, the whole world saw corruption, right? Animals started eating other animals. That wasn't in God's, original design, but that's what happened after sin entered the world, right? The ground isn't going to give you fruit and produce like it should. That wasn't in the beginning of the plan, right? Hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, all of these things is like, you know what it's like? It's like Indiana Jones when there's like that golden statue thing on the pillar, and then he takes it off, and then now the rock starts falling and this starts happening and everything starts collapsing. That's like sin, right? So sin, boom, it starts. And now everything is falling in on itself. It's destroying. It's terrible, right? But in Christianity, do we believe that when everything is restored at the end, that there's still going to be cancer, right? When the new heaven and the new earth meet, and then it's going to be the end. You think there's going to be cancer and Alzheimer's there? No, sir. It's going to go back to like it was in the beginning, before sin entered the earth. Okay, my guy? Read your Bible before you start, pontificating like this, my guy.
you're like, wait a minute, that's not true. Like, that's not true. It's not. And that's why it gets hard to hear that, because Daniel was supposed to be eaten by lions. They took him and threw him into a pit full of hungry lions with the belief that he would die and the plan to kill him. And God was like, no. He closed the mouths of those lions, and Daniel did not get eaten. The will of the people who threw him in there was for him to get eaten, and God was like, no, because I don't want Daniel to die.
Wow. So God makes choices, right? But what happened with Jesus? I love using Jesus as an example because Jesus is the perfect man, sinless, God-fearing, doing everything perfect, everything by the books. Why did the Father, right, allow Jesus to get crucified? Why did the Father allow Jesus to get crucified, right? Be tortured by the Romans and spit upon? Why would God allow that? Oh my goodness, you know what? That means like it can't even really exist. No. How many prophets in the Old Testament were being butchered and killed and tortured, right? And it was allowed to happen. And then some of them, they didn't, right? Some of the apostles were tortured, crucified, and murdered, right? John, he was alive until the end, right? Paul, going around the world, spreading the gospel, he was beheaded. So it's not just this like blanket statement of like, there's evil in the world and God can't do anything about it and God can do something about it. And it's like, you're really wanting to be in the seat of God and to saying, okay, this person's going to live and this person's going to die. I have an ultimate plan for this. I have an ultimate plan for that. I know what's going to happen with this one. I know what's going to happen with this one, etc., etc. You're not in God's mind or have the capability or the capacity to really be like, this is how all the chess pieces are going to move throughout history, with human free will, but obviously God does have intervention in it. And then you're asking, why doesn't God intervene in every moment? then my question would be, would you be alive at 12 o'clock if God got rid of all sin? I don't know, but how do you justify what is good and what is evil, Mr. Atheist?
Give you another example. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were sentenced to death by their government. They were thrown into a furnace and did not die. God suspended the laws of physics. He suspended the natural way that fire eats matter in order to save these people. So, why them and not the guy down the street? Why them and not this person's wife? Why them and not these children in Gaza? Like, why could God suspend the natural world and prevent someone else's will to kill someone for these people, but not these people? So you can pretend that God cares about free will and that's why bad stuff happens, but that's not what his diary says about this nigga. What it says is that it would seem like there are certain specific people that God cares about more than others.
And then wouldn't you think God cares about his son the most and wouldn't allow his son to go through this torture, this humiliation, this crucifixion? Your argument falls apart as soon as you just think to yourself, like, who are the people God allowed to pass away? And even when they die, what does dying mean, right? Does dying mean you cease to from one plane of existence to another plane of existence? During the time of Elijah, how many of the prophets were all executed, right? By Jezebel and by King Ahab, right? Like, you don't even make sense, my guy. His own son, right? It says, for God to love the world that he gave his one and only begotten son, right? So, like, the most important thing theoretically to God, his own son, only one, he allowed him to go through all of this, right? So certain people that he likes, no, sir, I don't think so. Because those children in Gaza that are being unalived, and that's a tragic travesty, right? They're going to be in peace after. It's hard to hear, but in atheism, what is it? You just got unalived. Now you're going to go to darkness, and now the person that bombed you, they go to darkness, no ultimate justice. Does that sound better for you, sir? But these are the cold facts of reality, and we have to accept them. No, they're not. Okay? Because there's going to be ultimate justice for those people bombing and for those people that have been bombed. And God is a God of justice and mercy and free will.
If you don't find yourself in that list, on that group, you are fucked. And that's the dude you're worshiping. Let's better hope you're in the in group, right? Because God forbid you are a Canaanite and don't know it.
So that means Jesus was effed, John the Baptist was effed, right? All of these guys, Jeremiah, all of these prophets, all of these people, they were all effed, you know? They were all effed. God just was like, I abandon you, because in Christianity, we believe that, like, after you die, it's not like you go into Abraham's bosom and then there's like the other guy that's in the lower place and he's being like, you know, he's going through a lot of torture and a lot of bad stuff. And he says, come down, dip your finger in a piece of water and come put it on my tongue. You know, because I don't know if you know the story of Lazarus and the rich man, where there was a rich man that wouldn't even give him the crumbs that fell off his table, and then there was a poor beggar in front of his house, and he died. Then the angels came and took him and went to Abraham's bosom, where he was in peace now for eternity, right? And remember the hell that you guys are so afraid of, that you guys always talk about? Yeah, that's where, like, the bad people will go, right? That were all this wickedness and evilness. So there is ultimate justice. So it's not like you're effed, right? You're effed in atheism. Because in atheism, you're born into this world for no reason. You're going to die for no reason. And then you're going to have nothing after that for no reason. So why not go in the world and bomb everybody and do what you want? Because there is no ultimate justice, right? But there is.
Stop telling me about it. I don't care. I don't care. Like, what? I do not care. Stop telling me about it. I don't care.
I really like this one. So he says, what did he say? All right, God's reaction to the slaves, you know, praying over 400 years to be freed, and he's saying God doesn't care, right? But what happened to God's chosen people in the Old Testament? Did they go through slavery for like 400 years plus? Were they crying out? Yeah, they were. Was there ultimate justice for them? Yeah, there was. So it's like these people just don't read the Bible. Because if they read the Bible for 1 second, they would see that the Israelites were in slavery for hundreds of years before Moses was born. And then when Moses was born, then God's like, okay, now this is the perfect time to release them from slavery, right? And then the curses on Egypt happened, and this happened, and that happened. And then when Israel goes off again, right? In the future, they go into slavery again, into Babylon, right? Into Assyria, the Roman Empire. So it doesn't make sense, or at least that God doesn't care. No, if you're a human being and you're going to live 50 years and you're like, man, I'm going to be in slavery until I die. Yeah, that's crappy. But 4 generations from now, God's going to come and his wrath and his judgment is going to come on the people that were enslaving me and release me from this slavery. Even though it's not going to be you, it's going to be your great, great, great grandchild. It's hard to swallow, right? But at the end of the day, it's not that God doesn't care, but God does have perfect timing. It's just not your timing that you would want God to act, right? These people want God to act like instantly. But then what happens is if God wipes out every human being, every time something evil happens, every time sin is about to happen, is there really free will? They hate this argument. Is it really free will? Right? Tonight, when you're about to go do something bad, does God just unalive you? How many people would be alive at 12 if God unalived every sinner? Right? There'd be a lot less people on the earth.
You all love these religious videos, so you ever stop and wonder how the same empire that killed Jesus somehow became the voice that speaks for him today? How does that even make sense? You see, when I research and I learn something, I like to use my own brain and put my 2 and 2 together on what makes sense. Forget what the book says.
So how did the Roman Empire go from crucifying Christ to being like enveloped and taken over by Christians? I would even say this is kind of like a miracle, not even kind of, really a miracle, because the Christians weren't going around with swords and they're like, now Roman Empire, you will subject yourselves to us. No, right? The Roman Empire was the greatest empire at that time, right? I don't know if they know about the miracle that happened with Constantine and all these things. Like God was like really trying to like keep this movement alive, because in the 1st century, this little movement of Jews that are now talking to Gentiles about the salvation through this man named Jesus Christ, and then somehow enveloping the Roman Empire and then going all over the world. It's almost like God is like, this is the one. Not like Islam, right? Going around with the sword, right, on your neck and, hey, Mr. Convert or pay jizya or unalived, right? So how would that happen? God's providence, I guess, is the answer. Well, let's see what else he has to say.
Forget what the text says. And you mean to tell me that the Romans went from executing a man to building churches in his name? Hey, Nick.
Amen.
Like, make it make sense. It doesn't sit right. And if you really dig, you'll see it was never about salvation. It was always about control. And this is me putting my own 2 and 2 together. Again, it's not truth. It's my truth. What I came up with, my own brain. Let's talk about it. Because the truth didn't die on that cross. It got buried beneath the empire. The Roman Empire. Who never fell. They just changed their name. But that's a completely separate video. You see, one of the most powerful regimes the world has ever seen was the Roman Empire. They didn't just rule with swords. They ruled with ideas, illusions, and rewritten truth. You see, 313 AD is when Constantine made the move that would change the course of history by converting to Christianity. But not the grassroots, rebellious, world-shaking message that Jesus taught, no. He created a new version, a state-sanctioned religion. Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. Did we catch that?
So Christianity, it can be true because Constantine was like, hey, let's stop killing the Christians. And then first it was like made so it wasn't illegal, and then it became the state religion. Like, how is this inconceivable? How is this unimaginable that like God could work through history and through time, right? And then be like, yeah, the same way Israel was this like small nation surrounded by all these bigger nations, and David was beating Goliath and all these things were happening, it's like, yeah, God's going to protect his people. So no matter what's going to come, right? If it's giants, if it's this, if it's that, they're going to overcome because they have God on their side. So now if the Christians have the true God on our side, what do you think's going to happen? You think we're just going to be being tortured and running and be under bridges forever? No, that happened for a time in the beginning, the first, second century. But then after, Christianity started to spread through the grassroots, right? In the Roman Empire, like, how many rights do you think women had? Women had to bring their kids to the father and place it at his feet, and then he would just be like, not a good one. Put them on the front doorsteps. And then Christians were the ones that would come and pick up these children. You really don't know church history. You really don't know the early years of Christianity and how it actually spread through the Roman Empire, because it wasn't the Romans' idea of Christianity to spread it through love and love your neighbor, etc., etc. No. It was violence, it was subjugation, and it was all of that. So I wish he would give sources for where he's reading this, right? But it's his own 2 cents, though. Wait, 2 and 2, 4 cents. It's his own 4 cents.
You see, the same empire that crucified the man claimed his legacy, twisted his words, and built an entire...
How did they twist his words? He's just like Sneeko. Then he's going to say the Council of Nicaea is like a book in the Bible. And then he's going to be like, Constantine wrote the Bible, actually. I wish we could have
That's
sources.
the ultimate hijack, if you ask me.
Acts.
Now, let's get into the war, because this wasn't just spiritual, it was political, cultural, and financial. We're talking about the Crusades, a series of...
Oh, now this guy knows even about the Crusades, about the Muslims coming into Europe, enslaving, subjugating, even Africa, cutting off the you-know-whats, right? Muslims were on a rampage. And then what happened with Christian Europe? Christian Europe was like, hey, yo, if we don't band together and fight off these Mohammedans, they're going to take over the whole world like they want to. So what do? King Baldwin, the first Crusades, the second, the third, they come together, and it was a defensive war against the Muslims. It was not Christians going all over the world and being like, everyone got to convert. Now, here's the conversion. And even if that did happen, I grant it to you, it doesn't say that in the Bible. It doesn't say go out and forcibly convert people into Christianity with a sword. It does not say that anywhere. So even if a Christian or a person who claims to be a Christian has done that, or ever did do that, or ever will do that, that person does not represent Christ. That person is what we call a wolf in sheep's clothing, sir. But your 4 cents can't sense that.
Religious wars launched by the Christian empires between 1096 and 1221. Nearly 200 years of war. And what were they fighting for, y'all? Control. Control over Jerusalem, the Holy Land. But deeper than that, control over belief, over minds, and...
Wait, why did he skip over that fact? Control over Jerusalem. Who are they fighting? Who were they? Were they fighting the air? They were beating the air? Or was it the Muslims? Sir, like, why give people half of the truth? Tell them who they were fighting Jerusalem over. You guys need to go watch that King Baldwin movie, bro, and see who they were fighting.
Over the narrative. See, Muslims had Jerusalem peacefully for centuries.
Islam is a religion of peace. You go into it in one piece, and if you want to leave, you're in several pieces. That's just a joke for you guys. But peacefully, you guys see what's happening around the world right now, right? In Europe, everywhere else. What's happening when a large percentage of Muslims come into a land? Not saying all Muslims. So there's some Muslims that don't read the Quran and only recite it in Arabic, don't know what it says, and don't follow Muhammad's, marrying 8-year-olds or marrying 6-year-olds, doing the thing at 8 years old and this and that. They don't follow that part, or the good ones don't. The bad ones are the ones that actually read the Quran, believe it, and say, okay, now we got to do this. Like Muhammad Hijab, right? And all his guys, they're the ones that I would say are the bad Muslims because they're actually following their book. And you don't know anything about Islam or the Quran and what it actually says inside of the Quran, inside of Islam, what to do to disbelievers, what jizya is, any of these things, sir. So when you say they held it peacefully, what do you mean by peacefully?
Jews had sacred claims to the land. Pagans, mystics, and spiritual seekers all lived in harmony before the wars. But when the Roman church saw power slipping, they painted the war as God's will, a divine mission.
Are Jews and Muslims living peacefully together? Are Muslims living peacefully together with the Hindus? What happened? You know what? This is even perfect. What's happening in Africa right now, in Congo and Nigeria? Are those Muslims living in peace with the Christians there? Going in, shooting up churches, burning churches down, murdering, unaliving people for Allah? Allahu Akbar? That's peaceful to you, sir? Oh, no. Constantine actually told Muhammad to change the religion so he could even have more control, even over the Muslims. So he's controlling the Muslims on one side, the Christians on the other, and then the Jews are over everything. Facts. Okay.
But the truth, it was empire versus sovereignty, control versus consciousness, colonization wrapped in the name of the cross. The Roman Catholic
Bars.
Church backed the Crusaders. The Muslim
Bars.
empires defended, and for almost 2 centuries, blood flooded the soil in the name of religion. So who won? Nobody. The elite won. The Vatican.
Wait, nobody won. I would say the Christians won, right? I think the world became more peaceful after that. Not having the Muslims ruling and capturing every piece of land that they had, because Allah was not powerful enough to fight against the Christian God. Even why did the Christians win, right? You don't know your history, sir, but keep going. Keep cooking.
The bankers and bloodlines who funded both sides of the war. It's
The
still happening
Rothschilds,
today.
the Bilderbergs.
They didn't just kill Jesus,
Who
they
else did they
crucified
kill?
his message with him. Then they resurrected.
So I wish, I would ask him, so where is the original message? Do we have the original message? Is it even, there? Is it somewhere hidden? Or, no one has it? And how do you know it's different than the one we have now if you don't have the original? But these people talk very poetically and they do a lot of rhyming. Maybe he's an artist, because I like how he rhymes things, though. He's a very good rhymer.
False version to control the masses.
Control
And now
them.
we got Christians worshiping Roman crosses, celebrating pagan holidays renamed as holy, and fearing a creator they were never meant to fear, but they were meant to embody.
Proof.
See, this is bigger than religion. This is about spiritual warfare. To fear the creator is to fear yourself, because the creator breathed life into you. And if they can make you fear you, they win without ever raising a sword. So remember this, family. The greatest lie ever told wasn't just in what they wrote, it was in what they erased. And you were never meant to stay blind forever. So it's time that we stop fearing eternal damnation, stop fearing burning in hell, and start being brave enough to search for our own truth. Read these.
Search for our own truths. So he can search for his own truth and he finds it, and I search for my own truth and I find it. But if our truths conflict with one another, whose is actually true? Back to subjectivity, right? Nothing objective. Just whatever works for you, bro.
Books. Do your research. And
Not
then
one
stand
source.
back with a non-biased opinion and ask yourself what makes sense. God gave you a brain and a heart for a reason, and half of us don't even freaking.
It says you're a fool if you trust in your heart and your emotions. And I would say that's what you're doing, because he hasn't given us one resource or one piece of proof or evidence. He just gave us a nice story that he made up, or he got from somebody else that made it up, right?
Use it because we're too caught up in I don't want to go to hell. We got to do better, family. We got to stop fearing ourselves. We got to stop fearing ourselves, because at the end of the day, that's what we're scared of. We're scared to look at ourselves in the mirror and question anything. Anything. You see, we got to stop ignoring that little voice in our head. That little voice in your head that whispers to you, hey, this isn't right. This doesn't sound right. You ignore it because you're like, oh, no. No, this is how it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to just believe in everything that they tell me, or else I'm gonna burn. Come on now. Come on. And people always talk about the people who have NDEs and they see hell and they see heaven. Like, yeah, the subconscious mind is gonna show you what you're familiar to, what you cling on to. And people wonder why they see.
So he's saying when somebody has a near-death experience, your subconscious mind is just taking you somewhere else and you're seeing something. So I would just ask him, like, so what is your religion? What is your belief? What do you believe about the afterlife? What do you believe about the creator? What qualities does he have? And whatever you tell me, if I just tell you, no, it's going to be like this, and he's actually like this, and actually things are like this, does he just say, yeah, fair, good job, man. You came to that by yourself. That's your own truth. As long as it's not Christianity or something like that, that's good. But which one of us is right, bro? It's just all about feelings with these people. So emotional, right? God says in the Bible, the one that the Catholics, the Romans, and the Jews, and the Muslims, it says only a fool trusts in his feelings, right? If you put all your trust in your feelings and your emotions, you're a fool. But God bless you, and I hope you find the truth.
Yeah, they've been saying that Jesus was coming back since the moment that he supposedly left. And what's funny is Jesus himself said before he died that he would come back while his disciples were still alive at the end of Matthew 16. Look, I finally got a physical Bible. The Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person accordingly for what they have done. Truly, I tell you, some of you that are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Right.
Wait, so what does it mean for the Son of Man to come in his kingdom? What does it mean that some of you will not die before you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom? If you go to the next chapter that she didn't read because context, and these people, either they hate context, they don't know about context, they can't just read before and after the chapter. But then what happens is the transfiguration of Jesus happens. Where what? He's clothed in white, where Moses and Elijah appear visibly with him. Right? This is what it's going to look like when Christ comes in his glory. It says his clothes were so white and dazzling that it's nothing like no launderer could ever clean clothes this white. So yes, that is what it was. And you just don't know context and you can't read or something context. Just read past the chapter. Keep reading until the next chapter, because Matthew doesn't end in chapter 16, right? There's 16 chapters before Matthew, and there's like maybe there's 24 chapters or something in Matthew, but there's more chapters in the end.
Did Jesus die again? Oh, so like everyone who ever heard Jesus speak is dead now. Even their great grandkids are dead now. Still no Jesus. Still no one has seen the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Now the Christians are gonna say that I didn't read it right, or that it doesn't mean what it literally says on the page. One Catholic idiot tried to tell me that because I was reading a Bible online that it wasn't the same as the physical Bible that they had in their hands. And so now I have a physical Bible, still says the same shit that I've been fucking saying. What's interesting though is I recently discovered that one of the first slave ships to reach North America was called...
It always comes back to slavery, bro. Other people have been enslaved, black lady. It's not special for you, for black people, okay? Read history. Even the word slaves came from Slavs, Slavic people. That's how prolific slavery was. But yeah, just read the next chapter, right? Where it says Elijah and Moses appear and Jesus is clothed in white. And his disciples, I think it was John and Peter and his brother that were there. And they're like, hey, can you make some tabernacles right now, etc., etc.? And then they disappeared. But yes, that was the glimpse of what it's gonna look like at the end. So it is there, honey. Just keep reading your Bible, not just one verse, 2 verses. Read the whole chapter and try to understand it holistically in the context of the whole Bible, because the Bible isn't just one book. It's a library and a collection of books. But it doesn't seem you know that, with all the pride and arrogance it's coming out of you.
Jesus of Lubeck. And so it's said that some of the enslaved people, when talking about Jesus coming back, were just talking about the ship coming back to take them away from their life as slaves in North America back to their home in Africa. I don't know how much that holds up like logistics wise, but I could see how some people could have definitely gotten it mixed up. People have gotten a lot of stuff mixed up in the Bible. There are people walking around that still think that Noah was warning people about the flood before the flood happened, that the people laughed at him and called him dumb and all of that, and that's just nowhere in the story anywhere. It's mainly because people just don't read their Bible. They just depend on their pastor to read it for them in church. Those are the people that tell atheists like me to read the Bible like I haven't studied the hell out of this fucking book. I've probably read it more.
So it didn't say that they were eating, drinking, giving in marriage. It's okay. Just keep reading. Just keep reading, honey.
Than a lot of these Christians have. That a lot of Christians don't even know that Jesus said that he was going to come back while the disciples were still alive. Read your Bible, boo.
So smart.
If the oppressor and the oppressed are serving the same God, whose prayers are being answered? So I asked that question over a year ago, and I don't think I actually got an answer. I just had a bunch of Black people running around in the comments with sudden amnesia as to how this question will possibly have anything to do with them. I'm not serving the God of the oppressor. Why would I serve my oppressor's God? How did you get the God that you're serving right now? How did you get Jesus? Are we completely blanking out times in history where a...
And I want you to go Google right now. Did Christianity go into Africa first or Europe first? Because the answer is Africa. Christianity was in Africa first. But just keep going.
Oppressors have forced the people that they're oppressing to serve the same God as them? Or are we just skipping over that because it doesn't align with your afterlife insurance? How do you know that your God is any different than the...
And imagine when like the slave owners were like, okay guys, we're going to read these parts of the Bible, but we don't want you guys to really know how to read, and we don't really want to give you guys this whole Bible. Because then you'd be like, oh, look at the story of the children of Israel. Wait, look, all men are created equal. Wait, look. Wait, God, wait. Hey, this book is not about slavery. Hey, this book is about abolishing slavery. And who were the people that abolished slavery? Was it the Muslims? Was it the atheists? No, it was the Christians. So your sudden amnesia of history and not knowing anything is just so stupid. Sorry to use such vulgar language, but that's what it seems like. Because Christians abolished slavery. Christians are going around all over the world and stopping Muslim slave ships. Why didn't Islam abolish slavery? Why didn't atheism abolish slavery? Slavery was a human institution for time immemorial. But for some reason, it was the Christians that believed that, hey, slavery shouldn't happen and we should abolish it. And then there was a war that happened in America. But I guess she has amnesia.
One that was handed to you. Because if this is somehow the God of the oppressed, I don't understand why oppressors just keep thriving. Are we under some kind of impression that when slave masters bought a new plantation or when they bought a new slave?
Why do the evil keep prospering? Well, just wait until the afterlife and we'll see how everyone fares in the judgment, right? The people that were there lying and condemning and enslaving people and trying to justify through the Bible, as it says, they're going to be wolves in sheep's clothing. You're not a Christian just if you say you're a Christian, right? If you're oppressor saying, I'm a Christian and I go to church and I believe in the Bible, but I'm going to ignore all these places in the Bible where, everyone's made in the image of God, I'm going to forget about that and whip this person and do this to this person. What is your judgment day going to look like? These people that are so afraid of hell, I feel they all want like slave masters to go to hell, right? But just slave masters and stuff, not other people that sin other ways. But no, there's going to be ultimate justice.
Are we under the impression that they did not say thank you to the exact same God that you go to church to worship every single day? And if this is somehow a completely different God, like y'all say, then please explain it to me. Why are you using the exact same Bible that contained every single verse in the...
Because the Bible is, you can use the Bible however you want to. You can use the Bible to justify anything because you can just interpret it the way you want to interpret it. But then the other Christians, right? The other ones, the ones that were the real ones, in my perspective, the ones that are actually following the book, said we need to abolish slavery. How does that make sense? Can you answer that question? How can the same people that were doing this slavery, even though everyone was doing slavery, they were doing slavery too. How were they the only people that were like, okay, we need to abolish slavery, the Christians? How does that make sense, honey? How?
Slave Bible, because I know some of us think somehow the slave Bible was just created for slavery. Nope, it was taken out of the Bible that already existed. The version of that Bible that was already in existence and in.
So they had to make a new version of the Bible to justify and to help them have what they have and take out all those like bad verses about we're made in the image of God and actually you're wow. You're
Rotation
proving my
was where
point.
they got the slave Bible from. They did not create a whole nother Bible and twist the words like y'all say. It's the exact same Bible. Every single verse in the slave Bible can be found in the Bible that you hold in your hand today. Let's stop being around the bush here and answer the question. If the oppressor and the oppressed are serving the same God, whose prayers are being answered?
Well, they're not worshiping the same God. Because we would say that the people that are enslaving, that are doing all this wickedness, that are living contrary to the Bible, their God is actually Satan. Their God is actually themselves. And they're not worshiping the true God. Even though that they have the Bible in their hand, it's like if a Satanist has the Bible in their hand. Does that make them a Christian now? No, they're Satanists with the Bible in their hand. And when they read it and they say, we need to do this, and we need to do this, and we need to do this bad thing, you're going to say, look at those Christians, look at them doing such bad things. No, it's not just those who say with their lips, right, that I'm a Christian, but by your actions. Are you living like Christ? Are you doing the things that Christ commanded people to do, to love your enemies, to pray for those who, like, can you imagine getting all those things and all the Sermon on the Mount and everything that Jesus said and saying, like, we need to enslave people? Maybe you're not really worshiping the true God, but you think you are.
I've never liked how God constantly changes in Christianity to fit whatever narrative is on the table. But then I realized Christianity could not survive if it can't be constantly altered. I was debating a Christian and I asked him, why did God unalive the firstborns of Egypt? He told me because the Egyptians enslaved the Israelites and God's punishment is divine. Using the logic of the Bible, I had to ask him some follow-up questions. So I asked, God brought those babies into existence knowing that he himself would unalive them to punish the Egyptians for enslaving the Israelites, and the entire thing was a part of his plan, so he decided how this would play out and he let it play out like that. Before he was able to answer, I also asked, wait a minute, that means God doesn't care about the free will of those babies, nor does he care about the free will of the Egyptians. Does that mean free will can be interrupted by God as he sees fit? How is that free will then? Another question came to mind. If God was going to unalive those babies, why not instead just magically force the Egyptians to free the Israelites and keep the babies alive? If you're going to breach free will, you might as well skip unaliving babies. I checked my phone 15 minutes later, he blocked me. When you question religion...
So many bad logic, but he took away their free will because he knew that they were going to be born and that the Pharaoh was going to do these things and this was going to happen. So since God knew what was going to happen, he took away their free will. So why not actually just literally take the free will away from the Egyptians and force them to do what they had to do for none of these consequences to happen? Does that make sense, guys? How is it taking somebody's free will away to know what's going to happen? So if I watch the NBA game that happened yesterday and my friend tells me the end score and then I watch it today and then I tell my wife, hey, it's going to be 100-50, and then it happens, did I control that? Did I make that happen? No. God knew and knows Pharaoh was going to harden his heart and God was going to allow him to harden his heart, and that the firstborn are going to be taken to God. Because in Christianity, again, we don't believe in atheism, that when you die on earth, you're just dead. You're just gone. You're unalived. No, you are actually alive to God, because there's an afterlife. There is still a place where your soul goes, where there's going to be ultimate justice. But the sins and the destruction of your parents, the same way if your father's a deadbeat and then he leaves out of your life, that's going to cause repercussions for you in your life. Even though you were just a baby and you had no choice in it, these bad things are still going to happen. So yeah, and why is it bad as well, right? Always ask atheists that. What makes something bad and how do you justify morality? Because as soon as you ask them that question, they say, well, there is no objective morality. It's all just subjective opinion. Then, okay, I don't think it was wrong. I think this was right. Then there is no real conclusion there, sir.
I was thinking about this all night yesterday. Why does God get angry? And this is one of the many problems with the all-powerful and all-knowing God. Anger
Here
is
we
a
go again.
reaction. When something doesn't go as planned, you get angry. But God is...
No, that's wrong. Because I'm a parent. I know my kids are going to disobey and do bad things. I still have kids. And when they do those bad things, I'm still upset and disappointed and not happy about it. But I knew it was going to happen, so why are you even upset about it? Logic.
all-knowing, so who is he even angry at? Us or himself? This is one of the main things that clearly shows that religious texts about God were written by man freestyling. I think the authors were so locked in thinking their story was foolproof, but they forgot it doesn't make sense for an all-knowing God to get angry at anything because he already knows something will fail.
So everybody here, you know, when you get into a relationship with a person, the person's going to die one day, right? But why are you upset when they die? You knew they were going to die, so why are you upset that it happened? Doesn't make sense, right? There's a million things that I know are going to happen in my life that I'm not sad about right now, but when it happens, I'm going to be sad for the moment. I'm going to be sad that I lost this loved one or that loved one or this happened or that happened. And then it's also, we were made in God's image, not God in ours. So if we have emotions, it's not because we are the creators and the founders of emotions, because we came from this image of God. That's where we get all our faculties from. But no, I would not agree with you, sir. I would be upset with things that I even knew were going to happen in the future. Because when they happen, it's when they happen is when you get upset, right?
I am God.
But over time, I've been losing power. I started big, the creation of the universe and life, sometime after the Great Flood on a planetary scale. Later, mass plagues at the country level, then walking on water and multiplying lunch out of thin air in front of a few groups, mostly people who were already kind of impressed. By the Middle Ages, I downshifted further to occasionally reducing symptoms of syphilis. And now...
But why did you skip, like, the resurrection of Jesus? Because if you asked an atheist and like some like atheist materialistic guy and said, which one is more unlikely, that a dead human body would come back to life, or that the beginning of the universe where nothing goes into being, everything happens, which one is like more inconceivable? And I'm 99% sure they would say, well, it's more conceivable that a unalived human body would resurrect and come back to life. That would be a pretty wild claim and a huge miracle, right? That in Christ's own power, that he raises himself from the dead. I think that's a pretty powerful thing, sir. But just skip over it to make your point.
The best I can do is appear on a toast and help people find their car keys.
He just wants God to make a new universe every single day, every single moment, because God can't really be God. It's like these guys want God to be like a show horse and a show pony, being like, okay, God, now do this little thing now do this thing, now do this thing, and then I'll believe, and then I'll believe. And these people will never be satisfied and they'll never believe, but they can always tell themselves, the only reason I'm not believing is because God hasn't shown me enough yet. But what does Jesus say? The only sign that would be shown to you is the sign of Jonah. And a wicked and corrupt generation ask and seek for a sign. Even though we have all the signs already of, there's been a beginning of the universe. There was a Big Bang. There was nothing. Then there was something. Then life. How did life arise? How did this? How did that? All these things are already miracles, but you choose to deny it and then ask God, where's the evidence?
If you were born in India, you'd probably be Hindu. If you were born in Iran, Muslim. Thailand, probably Buddhist. You weren't born into truth, you were born into a story. And odds are you believed it, because your parents did, your neighbors did, your entire world.
So imagine like I was born in a household where 1 + 1, they said equaled 3. Another person, 1 + 1 = 5. Another person, 1 + 1 = 100. And then there was one person, I was born into a family where they taught you that 1 + 1 = 2. Now, can't you be born into truth that way? Make it make sense. Can you be born into a family where they have a correct understanding of math? Yeah? And you can be born into a family that has an incorrect view of math. So no, your claim is false that you can't be born into truth. You can be born into the true religion, and you can also be born into the false religion. But we have a human mind and faculties when you get to a certain age that you're like, hey, do I actually believe this? What are the reasons why what are the reasons why we believe this? But I guess he hasn't got to that point yet. Let's keep
told
listening.
you that it was real. But the problem is that every religion says that they're the only way. Every holy book claims that they have the truth. So either someone is lying or you got lucky. You did not find God, you inherited him. And if your salvation depends on geography, maybe it was never about truth to begin with.
It doesn't matter about geography, because how many Christians are born into Christian households and Christian families into Christian lands, and then they become atheists? So maybe it's not actually a lucky thing, because there's a lot of Muslims in Iran that are converting to Christianity, because you can still find the truth after being born into a lie.
As a black person, I don't even know how you can entertain religion. If there's one thing that atheists and believers should be able to agree upon, is that if there is a God, he does not like black people. Look at our history: enslaved, colonized, segregated, unalived in the streets, locked up, sterilized, and experimented on over and over. And somehow we are still the loudest in church in a religion.
Amen. But it still doesn't make sense, sir. Because black people have suffered so much, we shouldn't believe in God. Because other people haven't suffered as much. I don't like this sense of like black people having like the biggest chip on our shoulder, where we were the only ones that went through slavery. We were the only people that were ever experimented on. No, the world is a wicked and cruel and evil place, and everybody gets bad treatment. Yes, there are certain groups and families that do get better treatment, but I wouldn't just say that black people are the only ones that have suffered and suffered badly and still believe in God. I think there's a lot of people all around the world that have suffered and went through terrible, terrible things and still believe in God. Because look at Christ again. We're going to go back to Christ every time, right? What happened on that cross? What happened in his whole life? Betrayed by all of his friends? All of these things happening? Man, he should be the first one not to believe in God, because all these bad things happened. Doesn't make sense, sir. Just think about it for 1 second.
That clearly hates us. The God we thank for our meals is the same one who just sat there and watched during slavery. Also, back to slavery, do you guys never question why our oppressors gave us the path to enlightenment? Does that really make sense to you? Really?
Does it also make sense why they didn't want you to read that book and know how to read? Does it make sense that they didn't want you to read and know how to read that book and had to make a slave Bible so they could take out all those parts that are not going to help their situation, because they want to use anything they can to manipulate and control people? So what are they going to do? We don't want you to read, and we're going to give you an edited Bible that you can read, because if you ever read the real true Bible, then you would understand that you're made in the image of God as well, and all of this is actually wrong. But no, this guy's big brain smart.
Was a witness to the things that I know now. I'm 5 years out of school, super in debt. Got a house, not really a house, a basement for $2,000. Got a wife and got a baby, can barely afford the groceries that's in my pantry. But somehow we got 40 billion to send to Ukraine and to Israel to fund the genocides and the wars. Everything is outdoors, ain't that so wild? We got homeless veterans on the street, addicted to fentanyl, meth, everything that you see. I'm trying to tell you, this shit will make your eyes bleed when you start seeing the reality.
When this is for me, this is for all the children will have, so they can remember that their parents were in love and they gave a good example to follow Jesus Christ. That's the only example I'm trying to tell you.